The B-17 shuddered as flak burst around it, black flowers blooming in the frozen air at 23,000 feet. Staff Sergeant Frank O'Connor gripped the handles of his twin .50 caliber machine guns, sweat freezing on his forehead despite the -40-degree cold. Through his viewport, he watched a Messerschmitt Bf-109 peel away from the formation, banking hard before lining up for another attack run. Frank did exactly what 18 months of training had drilled into him. He tracked the fighter in his sights, centered the crosshairs on the nose of the aircraft, and fired. 200 rounds tore through the sky. Not a single one touched the German fighter. The Messerschmitt screamed past, cannon fire ripping through the bomber's wing. Frank's best friend, the ball turret gunner, never made it home that day. And Frank couldn't understand why. He'd done everything right, aimed perfectly, fired at the right moment. He just didn't know he was being taught to miss. It's November 1942, and American bomber crews are being slaughtered over Europe. The numbers are catastrophic. On some missions, 25% of aircraft don't return. Statistically, a bomber crew has only a 1 in 4 chance of surviving their required 25 missions. The math is brutal and simple. The problem isn't courage. American gunners are brave, well-trained, determined. The problem isn't their weapons. The Browning M250 caliber machine gun is one of the finest aerial weapons ever designed, capable of firing 850 rounds per minute with devastating stopping power. The problem is that they're aiming directly at the enemy. And in aerial combat at 300 miles per hour, that's the worst thing you can do. Think about it this way. You're throwing a ball to a friend who's running. Do you throw it at where they are right now? No. You throw it ahead of them, to where they're going to be. It's instinctive on the ground, but at 20,000 feet, with a target moving at 500 feet per second, with your own aircraft vibrating and turning, with G-forces pulling at your arms, with flak exploding around you and the roar of 4 engines drowning out thought itself? That instinct fails. Every gunner is taught the same thing. Keep your sights on target. Track the enemy. Center your crosshairs. It makes perfect sense. It feels right. And it's getting crews killed by the hundreds. And Lieutenant Colonel William R. Lawley knows something is terribly wrong. He's flown 32 combat missions, watched too many friends spiral down in flames, seen too many parachutes that never opened. But Lawley isn't just a pilot. Before the war, he was an engineer, and engineers don't accept failure, they analyze it. He starts keeping notes. After every mission, he interviews his gunners. How many enemy fighters did you engage? How many rounds did you fire? How many hits did you observe? The answers create a damning pattern. Gunners are firing thousands of rounds per engagement. They're reporting dozens of fighters in their sights. But confirmed kills? Almost none. The hit rate is less than 2%. Less than 2%. For every 100 rounds fired at an enemy aircraft, 98 miss completely. Lawley takes his data to the training command, and what he discovers makes his blood run cold. The entire American aerial gunnery training program is based on shooting at targets that are barely moving. Student gunners practice on fabric sleeves towed behind slow aircraft, flying in predictable patterns, at known speeds, from expected angles. Nothing remotely like combat. It's the equivalent of training a boxer by having him punch a stationary bag, then sending him into the ring against a professional fighter who's actively trying to kill him. The fundamentals might be there, but the application is fatally flawed. Lawley isn't the only one noticing. Captain James Stewart, yes, that James Stewart, the Hollywood actor turned B-24 squadron commander, is seeing the same horrific statistics in his unit. Captain Richard Cole, who flew with Jimmy Doolittle on the Tokyo raid, reports similar findings. Across every bomb group, every squadron, the story is the same. American gunners are brave. American gunners are dying. And American training is failing them. But in a small office in Laredo, Texas, a man who never flew a combat mission is about to change everything. Meet Lieutenant Colonel William B. Gerhard, and he's got a problem that would make most men quit. The Army Air Forces have put him in charge of creating a new aerial gunnery school, and they want results in months, not years. Gerhard has no combat experience, no previous training expertise, just an engineering degree from MIT, an analytical mind, and a growing pile of casualty reports that tell him the current system is broken. Gerhard doesn't approach this like a military officer. He approaches it like a physicist. He starts with the fundamental question: why do bullets miss? He breaks down every variable: aircraft speed, bullet velocity, wind resistance, gravity. The rotation of the Earth even, though that effect is negligible. He fills blackboard after blackboard with equations, calculating firing solutions for every possible angle of attack, every range, every deflection angle. And he discovers something remarkable. Something that contradicts every instinct, every bit of common sense, every standard training procedure. To hit a moving target, you have to aim behind it. Not ahead of it, which would make sense. Behind it. Here's why. A bullet doesn't travel instantaneously. Even at 2,900 feet per second, the muzzle velocity of a .50 caliber round, it still takes time to reach the target. At typical combat ranges of 400 to 800 yards, that's between half a second and a full second of flight time. In 1 second, a Focke-Wulf 190 traveling at 400 miles per hour covers 587 feet, nearly 200 yards. By the time your bullet reaches where the enemy was when you fired, he's almost the length of 2 football fields away from that position. So you have to lead the target, right? Aim ahead? Wrong. Because you're moving too. Your bomber is flying at 180 miles per hour. The bullets leave your gun with that momentum already built in. They're not flying at 2,900 feet per second in isolation. They're flying at 2,900 feet per second, plus your aircraft's forward velocity of 264 feet per second. When you fire, the bullets are already moving forward with you. They're already ahead of where they would be if you were stationary. Now imagine the enemy fighter is crossing in front of you, left to right. If you aim directly at him, your bullets, already carrying your forward momentum, will pass in front of him. They'll be where he was going to be if both of you had maintained course and speed. But the enemy isn't maintaining course. He's maneuvering, turning, diving, climbing. And the instant he deviates even slightly from a perfectly straight line, your bullets miss. The solution seems impossible. To hit him, you need to aim not at him, not ahead of him, but behind his current position. You need to aim at empty sky, at a point that seems completely wrong, and trust the physics. Your bullets, carrying your momentum, will curve through the air on a ballistic arc. If you've calculated the deflection correctly, if you've accounted for his speed, his angle, your speed, your angle, the range, the altitude, those bullets will intersect with his flight path at exactly the moment he reaches that point in space. It's not instinctive. It's not natural. It's counterintuitive in every way. It's also the only way to actually hit anything. Gerhard doesn't just work this out on paper. He can't. The equations are too complex, with too many variables. So he builds something revolutionary: a mechanical computer for aerial gunnery. It's an elaborate system of gears, cams, and mechanical linkages that can calculate firing solutions in real time. A gunner inputs range, target speed, and angle of attack, and the computer outputs the precise deflection angle needed. It's primitive by modern standards. No electronics, no programming, just pure mechanical engineering. But it works. More importantly, It proves the theory. When gunners use the deflection angles, the computer calculates angles that often require aiming dozens of feet behind the target. Hit rates skyrocket. But Gerhard faces a massive problem. He can't put one of these computers on every bomber in the European theater. They're too expensive, too complex, too fragile. And he doesn't have time to manufacture them anyway. He needs a solution that works with the equipment already deployed, with the gunners already in combat. He needs to retrain the human computer. Laredo, Texas becomes the laboratory. Gerhard sets up a new training facility where everything is designed around deflection shooting. No more stationary targets, no more predictable patterns. He brings in the hottest fighter pilots he can find, guys who know every aerobatic maneuver, every attack angle the enemy uses. These pilots become the aggressors. They attack the student gunners the way Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs attack. High-speed passes from oblique angles, diving attacks from above, head-on rushes where the closure rate exceeds 600 miles per hour, beam attacks where the fighter crosses perpendicular to the bomber's flight path. The hardest shot in aerial gunnery. The gunners hate it at first. It feels wrong. Every time they aim behind the target and fire, their brain screams that they're missing. The targets look safe. The bullets seem to be going nowhere useful. Then the camera guns show the truth. Camera guns don't lie. They photograph exactly what the gunner is seeing through his sights, synchronized with the moment he pulls the trigger. When a gunner aims directly at the target, the old way, the camera shows the target centered in the frame, and the miscalculation shows bullets passing harmlessly in front or behind. When a gunner uses deflection, aims at empty sky behind the target, the camera shows something different. It shows the target flying into the stream of bullets. It shows rounds impacting wings, fuselage, engine cowlings. It shows the kill. Slowly, painfully, the instincts change. The gunners learn to trust the physics instead of their eyes. They learn to calculate the deflection angle on the fly. High-speed crossing attack, 800 yards, 45 degrees off angle. Aim 3 aircraft lengths behind. Diving attack from 7 o'clock high, 400 yards. Aim 5 degrees below and 2 lengths behind. It becomes muscle memory. Mathematical muscle memory. Sergeant Bob Johnson graduates from the new program in March 1943. He's 22 years old, from a small town in Ohio, and he's about to test Gerhard's theories in the most unforgiving classroom imaginable: the sky over Germany. His first combat mission is a raid on Bremen. The flak is so thick, the crews joke that you could walk on it. Then the fighters arrive. Bf-109s, FW-190s, more than Johnson has ever seen, even in training. They're everywhere, attacking from every angle, and the sky fills with tracers. A Focke-Wulf breaks through the formation, coming in fast from 2 o'clock high. Johnson tracks it, calculates the deflection, 3 lengths behind, maybe 4. His training partner thinks he's lost his mind. The target is right there, and Johnson's pointing his guns at empty sky. Johnson fires. The .50 calibers roar. Tracers arc out, curving through the air. For a split second, it looks like a miss. Then the FW-190 flies directly into the stream. Rounds walk across the wing route, into the cockpit, through the engine. Smoke, fire. The fighter tumbles, trailing flames, and 3 seconds later, it explodes. Johnson's first kill. He aimed behind the target. The mission reports start changing. Gunners trained in deflection shooting are reporting hit rates of 15 to 20%. Some exceptional gunners hit 25%. Compared to the previous 2%, it's a revolution. Losses drop. Fighter attacks become less effective because the enemy learns that American bomber gunners are suddenly dangerous. By mid-1943, every gunnery school in the United States is teaching deflection shooting. By late 1943, combat units in Europe are receiving supplemental training. The veteran gunners are the hardest to retrain. Their instincts are too deeply embedded. But the new crews arrive ready to fight. The statistics tell the story. In 1942, the average B-17 gunner needed 4,500 rounds to down a single enemy fighter. By late 1943, that number drops to 2,000 rounds. By early 1944, some elite crews are achieving kills with 800 to 1,000 rounds, 5 times more efficient than the previous training produced. But efficiency isn't the real metric. The real metric is survival. Bomber loss rates begin to fall. Not dramatically. The air war over Europe remains brutally deadly throughout the conflict. But measurably. More crews complete their tours, more bombers return home, more gunners survive to train the next generation, all because someone figured out that hitting the target means not aiming at it. The principles seem simple now. Lead the target, deflection shooting. Every fighter pilot, every anti-aircraft gunner, every modern targeting system incorporates it. We teach it to video gamers. It's basic physics. But in 1942, it was revolutionary. Here's what made it truly remarkable: the resistance it faced. Think about trying to convince thousands of gunners that everything they've learned is wrong, that their instincts, the instincts that kept humans alive for millions of years of evolution, are their enemy. That they need to aim at empty sky and trust mathematics they can't see and physics they don't fully understand. And then convince them to bet their lives on it. Because that's what deflection shooting required. In combat, when a fighter comes screaming in at 400 miles per hour with cannon blazing, you have maybe 3 seconds to calculate the deflection, acquire the target, aim behind it, and fire. 3 seconds, while your aircraft is being shot at, while your friends are dying around you, while every survival instinct is screaming to aim at the threat you can see. The gunners who made it work weren't just technically skilled. They were believers. They had faith in physics, in mathematics, in training that contradicted their senses. Lieutenant Colonel Gerhard's principles didn't just improve gunnery. They changed how the military thought about training. After the war, the deflection shooting concepts evolved into modern fire control systems. Today's fighter jets have computers that calculate deflection automatically, that lead the target without the pilot even thinking about it. The F-35's helmet-mounted display literally shows the pilot where to aim for a successful hit, accounting for aircraft speed, target speed, wind, gravity, everything Gerhard calculated by hand in 1942. But those systems exist because someone had the courage to question the obvious answer. Staff Sergeant Frank O'Connor, remember him from the opening, survived his first tour and returned to the States in April 1943. The Army sent him to Laredo for instructor training. He learned deflection shooting from Gerhard himself. O'Connor returned to Europe in October 1943 for his second tour, this time with knowledge that his first crew never had. Over the next 6 months, he was credited with 4 confirmed kills and 2 probables. His hit rate was documented at 18%, 9 times better than his first tour. He survived the war, came home to Chicago, raised 3 kids, lived to be 87 years old. He kept a photograph on his desk until the day he died. It was a camera gun image from a mission over Frankfurt in December 1943. The photo shows the tail of a Messerschmitt Bf 109, crystal clear, centered in frame. And if you look closely, you can see the wings starting to fold, the beginning of catastrophic structural failure as 50 caliber rounds tear through the internal structure. The interesting thing about that photo? The crosshairs aren't on the target. They're 6 feet behind it, aimed at empty sky. O'Connor aimed where the target wasn't. and he hit exactly what he was aiming for. Here's the deeper lesson, the one that extends beyond World War II and aerial gunnery. Sometimes the right answer feels completely wrong. Sometimes expertise means abandoning your instincts. Sometimes you have to aim at nothing to hit something. The human brain evolved for survival in a world where things move at running speed, where you can see the entire battlefield, where your intuition about motion and trajectory is usually accurate. We never evolved for combat at 20,000 feet, at hundreds of miles per hour, with ballistics affected by thin air and crosswinds and the curvature of bullet paths. Our instincts failed, and men died because of it. What saved them wasn't better instincts. It was the willingness to override instinct with analysis, to trust mathematics over intuition, to retrain the brain to do something that feels unnatural until it becomes natural. That's what Gerhard understood. He wasn't just teaching gunnery. He was teaching people to think differently, to trust systems over instinct, to embrace counterintuitive truth. How many times in your life have you aimed at the target, only to miss? How many times has the obvious solution failed? How many times have you needed to aim at empty sky? The gunners of World War II learned that survival sometimes means doing the thing that feels wrong. That accuracy requires accepting complexity. That hitting your mark might mean not looking directly at it. They learned to aim behind the target, and they lived to tell about it